We hope you guys had plenty of coffee this morning because the Carolina Hurricanes and Florida Panthers went to 4 overtimes last night. Today, we talk with Sam Prevot of Bleacher Report in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by the lovely folks over at Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL. And when you enter promo code LockedOnNHL, they'll throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. And today I am joined by Sam Prevot of Bleacher Report to recap Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Final between the Carolina Hurricanes and Florida Panthers. And first off, how much coffee have you had this morning? Because that was 4 overtimes, almost went to 5.
Just 1 cup so far this morning. I do get a little anxious if I drink more than 1 cup of coffee usually, so today may be an exception. But normally just 1 cup. So I'm going to see how I do with 1 cup, but I may have to go back and make another one.
Yeah, this was an extremely long game. It ended close to 2 in the morning. It was 5 hours long. This was absolutely ridiculous. And this was actually the first conference final game to go to 4 overtimes since I believe
50 something I saw, I think.
1951 is when it was. That was when the last conference final game went to 4 overtimes. So this was very long. It was the longest game in Panthers franchise history. It's the longest game in Hurricanes franchise history, and the 6th longest game of NHL history. So I got to ask, how was it experiencing that in person? Because it was rough for me, listening to it at work, coming home, watching the rest of the game. It was rough for me, having been up since 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah, being there was definitely a different experience. Like, I think I look at it differently now that they lost. Like, if they won, I think I would have a different feeling about it. I'd be like, oh my God, that was the greatest experience of my life. But leaving, I was like, we stayed till 2 a.m. for this. And just as it kept dragging on, they went back and forth with the scoring chances and everything, but there was just a lot of neutral zone turnover, back and forth. And I was just like, just end it. Just end it. The Canes kept icing it. I'm like, just someone end this game. Preferably the Canes, but someone end this game. I'm tired. They stopped serving food. I was hungry. I was like, I'm ready to go home. This is a really cool experience. I'm going to remember it the rest of my life, but I also just want to go home.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those experiences where it definitely got to that point where it's just like somebody in this game. And, it did end up feeling like, fatigue was really setting in for the Hurricanes and the Panthers as well. You go almost 5 overtimes. Fatigue is going to be a factor. They played over 2 games of hockey in this game. So, you look at all that and it kind of felt like it was going to come down to a stupid mistake, and that's ended up what happened. And just a mistake led to Matthew Tkachuk getting the game-winning goal. But before we get into the end of the game, the Hurricanes really had a lot of trouble in the first 40 minutes, and it really looked like a team that had an extended break, and it looked like they had trouble. It didn't look like they had trouble getting to their game. They did have trouble getting to their game. How much of that was rust, and how much of that was just the Florida Panthers, coming out hot and being ready to go?
Honestly, I thought about this a lot last night, on the way home and everything. And to me, the whole game, the Canes just looked so out of sorts. And in my head, I just kept thinking, where's the line between too much time off and not enough time off? Because they've been sitting in Carolina for about a week. They won last Thursday, and then the game was yesterday. So no, last Wednesday or Thursday. Anyway, so they had over a week off. So and I know that they had multiple just full days off. Rod said like no practice, no nothing. So in my mind, I'm like, well, are they looking like this because they had so much time off? But also, why are the Panthers looking so incredible when they had to travel more? They played longer. Like I was trying to like reconcile it in my brain, and it was really hard to pinpoint like what went wrong, I guess, because Rod Brind'amour teams are historically very well conditioned. So it just seemed very odd that they would have all this time off and time to prepare and to scout a team that does play a very similar system to them. And they just couldn't figure it out. It was just very strange to watch it all unfold.
Yeah, it kind of felt like a mixture of both, of them having too much time off, and maybe they should have, practiced a couple days more. And just not necessarily like a full, all out practice, but just getting out there, and keeping it going. But then again, Florida Panthers, they were very well prepared. Now in the third period, the Hurricanes did look a heck of a lot better, and they really looked like the Hurricanes for the most part. And what adjustments do you feel were made in that locker room there? What was being said and whatnot, for them to come out in that third period and end up tying the game, forcing the initial overtime, and then we
Yeah.
know how it went from there.
A big thing for me, at least that I noticed, and it was frustrating me the entire game, was the first two periods, they kept doing this thing that they usually do, which is they don't want to just throw pucks on net. And they keep going for that cross ice pass or that pass to the middle or the drop pass or whatever it is. And every time there was a Panthers player there. And they just kept doing it regardless, over and over and over the first two periods. It was driving me out of my mind. And then finally, in the third, they kind of just said, like, screw it, and just went to that system of let's just get pucks on Bob, and he's giving up the rebounds. Let's just get the pucks on him. And that's why I particularly love the way Brady Shea and Brent Burns played yesterday, because on top of being really great defensively and being solid defensively, specifically Brady Shea, because I think on the opposite end, Brett Pesce had a horrible game. And I think Brady and KK were there to make up for it. But Brady and Brent, their game plan is always, if I have a clear shot from the point, I'm just going to send it. And I think that mentality needs to creep into the forward group a little bit more of, we can't always go for the power play is an exception, but at even strength, we can't keep going for this cross ice pass to the person waiting in the back door. It's just not working. The Panthers are going to stop it every time. You're a great forechecking team. Get the puck, get pucks on net, someone be in front of the net, and it will go in. Like, I think that was the biggest adjustment that I saw between the first and second and then the third.
Yeah, and speaking of making a big adjustment like that, it does feel like they are going to have to do stuff like that, make big adjustments heading into game 2. And we will talk about game 2 and what adjustments they're going to need to make right after this quick break, folks. Now, attention active individuals, are you tired of sacrificing your comfort for style when it comes to your activewear? Introducing Birddogs, the game changer in athletic shorts. Picture this: premium shorts designed for maximum performance combined with unparalleled comfort. Birddogs are here to revolutionize your workout routine. With their unique built-in liner, these shorts offer ultimate support and flexibility, ensuring you stay comfortable even during the most intense workouts. And here's the best part: Birddogs are more than just workout gear. They're versatile enough to take you from the gym to the street without skipping a beat. Designed with pockets that actually work, Birddogs give you ample space to store your essentials while you're on the move. Birddogs are made with premium breathable fabric that keeps you cool and dry throughout your activities, perfect for the trails, the gym, or simply lounging around. Birddogs are the shorts you've been searching for. Order a pair at Birddogs and join thousands of satisfied customers who have made the switch. visit birddogs.com/lockedonnhl. Use code LOCKEDONNHL to give a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. Bird Dogs, where style meets comfort and performance meets perfection. Get yours now and unleash your true potential. Now, diving into game two and adjustments that are going to be made. We'll obviously talk about game two, later on in the week, but it does feel like they are really going to have to make some adjustments if they are wanting to win this series and advance to the Stanley Cup final. We already talked about the biggest one of they got to stop looking for passing lanes so much. Get the pucks on net. That has been something that has been a problem for the Hurricanes for not just this game, not just this postseason, not just this season. It's been a problem for them for years now. Of they always look to pass first. We saw in this game multiple times where guys had golden opportunities to shoot and they passed on it. And that again is the biggest change that they're going to need to make in game two. But what are some other changes that you feel they're going to need to make in game two?
Honestly, my biggest frustration, I think, was there were more players that I didn't notice making plays last night than I noticed like making big plays or stepping up, or I was like, oh, that was a great play. I think Seth Jarvis was the star yesterday, in my opinion. I think he played out of his mind. He was in every single play when he was on the ice. He was all over the ice. I thought he was incredible. That obviously helps when you're as young as he is and you're going into 4 overtimes and you have as much energy as he does. That obviously helps your case a little bit. But I just think that, particularly Aho, especially with like the shooting issue and things like that, I just didn't see him being as active in those plays as his line mate Jarvis was. I think that more of the forward group needs to just, I don't even know what they need to do. It's just I just didn't notice them at all. Those top line guys. It wasn't the defense. It was I noticed Derek Stepan more in that game last night than I noticed Aho. And that's a problem, especially when he's your playoff leader in points and you expect him to come up big in those big moments. I don't know what specifically those adjustments need to be because I don't just laser focus on him in the game, but he needs to do, getting pucks on net obviously is the first problem, but just maybe their forecheck was a little on the, they eased off on it a little bit last night. There were moments where I thought maybe they could get into the physical play a little bit more and they didn't. Maybe that's fear of Radko Gudas or Sam Bennett bashing someone's head into the ice like they did against Toronto. But I just feel like the forward group was so invisible last night, and that's not sustainable if you're going to try to make the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, I totally agree there. And, I've said many times throughout this playoffs and, the deeper this run has gone that, every player is a key player at this point, but this is a time where you want your top guys, your star players to do top guy and star player things. We saw it last night with Matthew Tkachuk. He's the guy, the Panthers are going to look to end a 4 overtime game. And that's exactly what happened. So this is a time where, again, top guys need to play like top guys, plain and simple. Everyone's key. Everyone is important. Don't get me wrong. But, Aho, he's, with Fetch being out, he's your best player now. He needs to play like your best player. And it did feel that, a lot of guys were invisible in this game. And forechecking, like you said, especially in those first 2 periods, they really got away from it. They weren't doing it well. It got better as the game went on. But, this was, Teuvo Teravainen's return game. And, definitely at first, you could definitely tell there was a bit of rust there. And he did not look like typical Teuvo Teravainen. Now, credit to him, he did play everything. And he played, 5-on-5. He played power play. He played penalty kill. He played in every overtime. It wasn't like he was getting limited ice time.
And I thought he particularly played well not to cut you off, but I feel like he particularly played well. I thought there were a few moments where he got into the play and he was doing everything he could to, generate a takeaway or stop the Panthers rush. I noticed him a lot during that game, and I was pleasantly surprised because it's one thing to miss regular season games and come back, but to miss playoff games and come back and make it as, as much of an impact as he could, considering that he doesn't have the same level of conditioning playing in as many playoff games. I was pleasantly surprised with his performance, actually.
Yeah, he definitely felt like he settled in as the game went on, and it got better. But another guy that I think was really standing out in this game, in my opinion, earned himself a contract extension already with the playoffs, and last night especially was Frederik Andersen. He was stupid good, and he really kept the Hurricanes in it, especially as the overtimes wore on and really doing everything he could, making some amazing saves. And for you while you were there, watching, what was the sentiment around Freddie and what he was doing out there on the ice?
Yeah. Everyone was going crazy. And I feel like the sentiment was across the board, people at home, people in the arena, that Freddie deserved better from them in that
Hmm.
game. And you could just see that he was calm. Nothing was phasing him. And he actually did something that I was happy because he's strayed from this in the past. He's prone to playing the puck a lot, not
Hmm.
in the sense of like coming out of the net and like going to play the puck, but as in like focusing on the person with the puck instead of anticipating where it might go next. And there were a few times where I saw him, the puck went somewhere, and he, instead of going towards it to try to play it or focusing on that player, he was moving from post to post horizontally or
Hmm.
anticipating what was going to come next. And I think that that's super important for him because that's where a lot of his mistakes come from, in my opinion.
Hmm.
So to see him be so calm and just so in control and to not make those mistakes that he's prone to making, that was so reassuring going forward. And just, I honestly, as soon as Matthew Tkachuk scored, I was like, this was not on Freddie.
No,
Freddie deserves
absolutely not.
better. He just put on the best performance of a goalie probably ever in a Hurricanes uniform. Like that, this is not on him. And honestly, I don't, aside from Brett Pesce's performance, I don't think it was really on the defense either. The forward group just looked gassed inexplicably to me, looked gassed almost the entire game and
Hmm.
just couldn't. We generated a lot of shots, but it felt like the Canes of old where we would throw everything in the kitchen sink on the goalie and but how high quality was all of it, and they were able to stop all of it, and we end up losing by a goal.
Yeah, it was, Freddie was great. And again, like I said, the defense was great. Aside from Brett Pesce not having a really great game, the Hurricanes played a really good defensive game. And this is a criticism I had during the regular season of the forward group just wasn't there. And we can't, do that, in game 2, game 3, game 4, however many games this goes. You can't do that. They have to show up. And yeah, Freddie, it was not on him by any means. And I've said in about the entire length of I've been doing this show, uh, sometimes it feels like the Hurricanes are just shooting to shoot, not
Yeah.
shooting to score. And yeah, you got to create pressure. You got to get the pucks on the net, but also on the flip side of that, you need to choose your shots well. And the when I was up in Detroit for the regular season game back at the end of March, it felt like they were using the Red Wings logo on Ned's jersey as a target. They're just shooting right at the middle, and it kind of felt like that sometimes last night as well, or
Yeah.
this morning, whatever you want to say. But yeah, it definitely feels like their shot selection is really going to need to improve because both goalies were in playoff form
Yeah.
last night. When the Hurricanes signed Frederik Andersen, they wanted a number one goaltender that could carry them in the playoffs. And that's what they're getting with Freddie right now. He wasn't able to play in the playoffs last year because he was hurt. I believe it was torn ACL or MCL or something. One of those CLs. but they were finally able to get him in the playoffs this year, and he's done what they wanted him to do. And
Yeah,
like I said, in my opinion, he's earned himself an extension. With the way
absolutely.
he's played in this playoff last night, especially, he's earned his extension.
I would have
So,
disagreed with you going into the playoffs, actually. I would have said, like, I think maybe, like, we let him ride it out in the playoffs, and then however it
yep.
goes, we let the ship sail. But the last night especially, I was like, I don't know if you can let Freddie go. And with the shot selection thing, the first thing that came to mind was Natchis's breakaway. I
Mhm.
think, first of
Mhm.
all, he tried too many moves, and then when he finally put his shot on Bob, he didn't elevate the puck, and that was the 2 goals that they did score. That was how the puck went in. They elevated it over Bob's shoulder. Like,
Mhm.
you got to go top chatter on Bob, it seems, to score because he's playing out of his mind.
Mhm.
But so I just thought that was poor shot selection by Natchez, who's one of the best goal scorers on this team, if not the best goal scorer on this team aside from Spetch. You know, that's, I mean, obviously in the moment, who knows what's going through your head, and you're just trying to get the puck on and whatever. But to me, that seems like a no-brainer that, if our other goals were scored by elevating it, well, if I have a breakaway on this guy, I'm going to try to get the puck up instead of just either throwing it at his chest or throwing it at his legs or whatever. But that when you said shot selection, that first was the first thing that came to mind, because I saw that breakaway was like just a disaster for Natchez, and
Mhm.
I, that probably could have changed the game, and if
It
that
really
went in.
could have. It really, really could have, and that's something that, they were mentioning on the radio broadcast while I was at work listening. They're trying to do too much. They're being too extra. They're being too cute of, trying to do these fancy things. Just keep it simple. They know what works for them. Just do it.
And
It's
that's what
that
worked in the third.
exactly. They stuck to their game. They kept it simple. They didn't try to do too much. I feel, that's a big thing that they need to do in game 2, and we will give our game 2 predictions of what you can expect from game 2 right after this quick break, folks. All right, it's time, to look ahead to game 2 for a quick preview of that. Now, first and foremost, the biggest thing that folks are going to be talking about with game 2 is the fatigue factor on both sides. Like we said earlier, they played over 2 games of hockey here. And this was an 8 p.m. start time on
Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah, I forgot what day it was, and, it didn't end till, 2 in the morning on Friday, and game 2 is tomorrow on Saturday, so they're not going to get as much rest as would have initially been planned for. So, not only for the Hurricanes, but for the Panthers as well. I really think we're not going to see, a game like this. I think, you're really gonna see fatigue on both sides for sure,
Yeah.
and I think we are going to see fatigue like mistakes, kind of what led to the Kachuk goal. I really think that's something we can expect, but, how much of a factor do you think fatigue is going to be playing in game 2 for both sides?
Yeah, well, for the Hurricanes particularly, I said it like right when the game ended last night. I think this game 2 is going to be a real measuring stick for them, because there's two ways it can go. They can either take this as a deflation. What are we going to do? It's over already. They beat us at home in such devastating fashion. How can we recover? Or they use it as fuel. So obviously there's going to be naturally fatigue on both sides. That's, like you said, it's just bound to happen. But after that initial wave wears off, maybe in like the after the first period or even halfway through the first, however long it takes, are they going to stay deflated, or are they going to use all of it as fuel to say that's not our game, we're going to get to our game and show them why we got here in the first place? And I think them having the home ice will definitely help with that, because it's one of the loudest buildings I've ever been in. And
Mhm,
I think that definitely gives you a boost, as opposed to, the Panthers, who don't have that same boost. But honestly, it's just, I think the Canes right now are either going to be their biggest savior or their own worst enemy.
mhm,
They have to figure out how they're going to let this loss affect them, because the Panthers, in my opinion, are just having that 2012 Kings run. Nothing's going to obviously they'll have this natural fatigue, but nothing's getting them down. They're just vibing. Everyone's, in great spirits. Matthew Tkachuk was joking about everything last night. I mean, he pointed to the locker room and they all ran off after he scored the goal. And they all were like jumping on Bob and like celebrating with him. Like, you can see the vibe that they have, where I think the Hurricanes are going to have to work a little harder and determine their own fate here and say, are we going to let this completely deflate us and just say, well, they're having a magical run and it's their year? Or say, no, it ends here and we're going to use this and use our fans and use our crowd to take back game 2 and return to our style and prove that we are the better team than them, which I believe they are.
Yeah, it really is going to be a big mental test for the Hurricanes in game 2. I think that's honestly probably the biggest factor for them here is the mental aspect of it. Now, I do think we can see some maybe not changes in the lineup, but maybe some adjustments in terms of what they're doing out on the ice. I do think we could see that because we saw them looking for the passing lanes when they should have just put the puck on the net. I do think we will see a bit of a change with that in game 2. I do think we can see them looking to pass little bit less. But what do you think about that? What happened here? Oh,
There we go.
okay, cool. What was the last thing you heard?
I had finished what I was saying about how they were going to be their own worst enemy or use it as fuel, and then you had started to talk.
Okay, okay. I'll pick back up. Okay. Now, one thing I do think we can see is some adjustments be made as to what they're doing on the ice. We talked about earlier how they were looking for passing lanes too much and looking to pass first rather than putting the puck on the net, like Natchez being that golden breakaway, and he passed up on it and end up trying to do too much. And I do think in game 2 we will see them not do that as much, because that was tail of the tape for the first 2 periods. And I do think that is really going to be something Rod, Tim Gleason, coaching set, something they're all bringing up, like, hey, don't do this. Plain and simple. Get the puck on the net. Like you said, elevate the puck. That was the one thing that they were able to get with Bob is, elevate the puck, get it over his shoulders. I do think we will see more of that. I do think they will come out for checking a lot better in game 2, because that was a really big issue in the first 2 periods. Now, as far as adjustments that you think will be made in game 2, do you think they'll be doing this, or is there something else?
I agree with everything you said, and one player that I think hopefully will also have a better game offensively, I think will be KK. I think
Mhm.
like I hate like keep ragging on Brett Pesce, but it was just something that was driving me crazy considering the contrast of Brady Shea having such a great game, making huge plays, making big hits, and I feel like Brett was pinching a lot, especially at unnecessary times. And KK, I saw him. I mean, this is him being defensively responsible, but I think KK was coming back to help Shea
Mhm.
out. And then that takes him out of the offense because he's too busy covering up for mistakes that Pesci was making. So I hope that if Pesci ends up having a better game or, not even like a remarkable game, but like a slightly even better game where KK is not taking himself out as much, I hope KK can, bring back some of his offense because he was key in the Devils series for sure. And I think they missed because he's a player that throws quality shots on net. And I think that I think his line missed a lot from him because
Mhm.
he was rightly so being defensively responsible, but I think that takes him more so out of the offensive side of the game.
Yeah, and you bring up Brett Pesce again not having a really good game, and that's kind of something we've seen several times this postseason of him not having a good game. Brady Shea not having a good game. That this defensive pair through the regular season, for the most part, was really freaking good.
Yeah.
And in the playoffs, they've really taken a step back as a whole. They've had games where they have been lights out, looking like regular season form for them. But I do think that is really going to be something that has to change in game 2, game 3 of those two guys getting back to the way they are because Jacob Slavin, Brent Burns, still really good. Jalen Chatfield, Shane Gostisbehere, still really freaking good.
They were great last night, the two
Yeah,
of them. I was impressed with Chatfield a lot last
mhm.
night.
Yeah, like those guys, are still really good, and sometimes it feels like in the postseason, there's always that one defensive pair, that just isn't there for the Hurricanes, and it's weird it being this pair of Brady Shea and Brett Pesce. But we've talked a lot about fatigue factor. Now Frederick Anderson, he played a very, very long game. Now in game 2, do you see the Hurricanes going with Antti Ranta here? Or do they go back to Freddie Anderson? Because I mean, you can't go wrong with the Freddie
No.
because of how good he's been, but he played that long of a game. I kind of feel like Antti Ranta, may be the guy to go to because of
Yeah.
that fatigue factor that we've been talking about all
This
day today.
yeah, this is honestly the biggest question mark for me because Rod is he loves to ride the hot hand, and I don't blame him because I
Mhm.
do too. And I think the fatigue factor and Freddie's just general tendency to get hurt, I do worry about riding the hot hand in this sense of putting him in, but I also worry like on the flip side of that, Atiranta hasn't played in a long time,
Mhm.
and he also is prone to injury, and not playing a long time and then jumping right into it can also cause injury. So I think the goaltending is going to be a huge question mark. I do wonder if they just I mean, this is such a horrible thing to say when you're down 1-0 in a series, but putting in Freddie to start because he just played so well and you don't want to mess with his head. And if worst case scenario happens, then you put in Antiranta. I could see that maybe happening, but ultimately, as I work it out in my head as I'm talking to you, I would say just stick with Freddie because you don't mental space for a goalie is so important, and you don't want to mess with him by saying like you had a great game, but we're worried about you, so we're not going to play you in game 2. I think
Mhm.
you kind of have to start Freddie despite some reservations you might have.
Yeah, I do think at the end of the day, should, Freddie not be saying anything, like, "Hey, I think it'd be best, if Ronta starts this one." Now, if he says that of like, "Hey, I'm not good to go for game 2," then yes, absolutely go with Antti
Yes.
Ronta. Don't throw him out there. But if he's not saying anything, if he's not giving any signs in practice, in morning skate of like, "Hey, we may want to sit him for game 2," you know, I do think you go with Freddie here. But yeah, it's going to be really tough. Fatigue is going to be a big, big factor for everyone. Brent Burns, gosh, yeah, I know he played over 40 minutes. I mean, he's conditioned to the moon at 38 years old. And I will say, yeah, this entire game, even though they lost, is a testament to the conditioning that Bill Bernstein has done with this team. Because yes, teams are a lot better conditioned now than 10, 20, 30 years ago. But to go for almost 5 overtimes, and that's a real big testament to what the Hurricanes and the Panthers coaching and conditioning staff does with their teams. And tip of the cap to those guys. But ultimately, we're just gonna have to wait till game two, to see what we can expect here. It's one thing, for us to sit here and talk about it. We could talk about it all day long, but at the end of the day, we won't know until we know. Plain and simple. And game two is tomorrow, and it's
Yep.
gonna be a different beast than game one for sure. I think ultimately, like you said, it will come down to the mental aspect of the game. Both teams are going to be tired. That's a given. And it's going to be the team that is 100% mentally and can then take advantage of the mistakes that the other team is going to be bound to make.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that I will give a testament to the Canes for is, yes, at times they were not really sticking to the plan, their system, however you want to say it. But I think a notable thing is that Matthew Tkachuk, aside from the goal, had like one or two shots the whole rest
Hmm.
of the game. And yeah, there's some talk that he might be injured or something, but to shut him down that much, because I really didn't see him that much. And Brandon Montour, yes, he played the most of anybody, but he's been a scoring machine. And I don't think he had that many quality scoring chances. And that's something that needs to continue going forward. So I do think that that was a great look into how the Canes, it's not all hope is lost, and they can right the ship and
Hmm.
get their game plan together and shut down this team. They know what they need to do, and they've kind of been doing it. Now they need to like 100% do it.
Yeah, it's the defense was there. They shut down the guys they needed to shut down. It was just they need to get the offense up to
Yep.
that level defensively, which has been an issue with the Hurricanes in the past in the playoffs. I think we were all kind of expecting a low scoring series here. We weren't expecting a repeat of the New Jersey series by any means. But yeah, the Hurricanes definitely need to find their offense in game two for sure. But, you know, we're just going to have to wait till tomorrow to see what happens with game two. So, in the meantime, make sure you're following Locked On Hurricanes on Twitter at LO_Hurricanes, myself on Twitter at Jared Ellis _96, my co host Andrew at A Schnitt53. And Sam, where can everyone find you on social media?
They can find me at S_Prevot, Prevot, on Twitter, everywhere else too. And please follow BR Open Ice if you haven't yet. Bleacher Report's hockey brand. We're fun. We have fun. We were live tweeting the entire 4 overtimes last night, but that's BR_Open Ice on all social media platforms.
Yes, I loved the SpongeBob tweets. That was hilarious. But we will talk to you guys in the next episode of Locked On Hurricanes on Monday, where we'll be recapping game two and whatever else comes out with the Hurricanes over the weekend. So, as always, folks, let's go Canes.